Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the podcast, Love Letters to Pam, or of course you may be watching via the YouTube channel, Traveling with Jack and Pam. First of all, I need to right out of the gate tell you that some of you probably saw that title talking about suicide, things like that, something that we don't like to think about. And don't worry, no, yours truly, not thinking about doing anything like that. But I did think it's a subject that we do need to talk about. And it's an important subject to talk about. You know, I often talked, I did a video not long ago that it was one of my biggest videos in a while. It had several thousand views where I talked about Sarasota Tim being my hero. It was kind of tongue-in-cheek. He's another YouTuber who had some overnight sensation, so to speak. And his channel is incredibly grown now, wildly. And I was asking the question of what happened to the algorithms? How did that happen? But really, that's not that important. And I'm not here to trigger an algorithm to make the channel go wildly successful and get thousands upon thousands of views. However, this message is one that I think a lot of people need to hear. Because those of you who are going through grief and loss, and that includes yours truly, we go through some incredibly dark times. And I want to go ahead and tell you right off the bat, it doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means you're normal. It just means you're feeling the impacts of loss in your life. And it's hard. It's really hard. Now let me say too, right off the top here again, I am absolutely not an expert. Just like Sarasota Tim is not an expert on retirement and Social Security and things like that. He's just giving you his observations. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just giving you my observations. If you really truly think you're on the edge, you need to call one of the hotlines out there. There's a suicide hotline. You can Google it. There's an 800 number. I'm sure there's local services, things like that. At the very least, call a friend, call a family member, call someone. Talk to them. Keep talking, okay? That's one of the things we have to continue doing throughout our grief process. And I know there's a lot of people that don't want to talk to us about it anymore, especially if you're past the year mark. Everybody thinks after a year you're going to be fine. I still remember right after I lost Pam, a young pastor who was a wonderful gentleman, but he didn't really know about grief and loss. And he told me, he says, well, I've heard that after 6 months it gets better. Well, yes and no. We've talked about that. But he didn't know, and that's okay. And I didn't know, and I still don't know. I'm still learning, just like you are. But let's talk about those deep, dark thoughts that we get sometimes. I get them too. I mean, I'm 3.5 years into this grief journey. You may be 3.5 days into your journey. You may be 30 years into your journey. It's hard any way you slice it. And you're going to have those dark thoughts from time to time. Now, yes, we're supposed to be uplifting one another. These videos, I'm supposed to make you feel better. I'm not sure I can make you feel better. That's not really the point there. But I can share with you my feelings and let you know that you're not alone in those feelings. Now, here's a little story. I told it a long time ago, but I'm going to tell it again because it's really important. I was back in Franklin, Tennessee. I was in downtown. It's a beautiful, historic downtown. I could just see Pam and I enjoying a lovely day there, going in all the little various shops and checking out the history and things like that, having lunch, having one of those really good days. We used to sometimes at the end of a Saturday or Sunday get home and go, boy, this was really a good day. This was really a good weekend, wasn't it? We used to say that. I say that some now, not as much as I used to. And on that particular Saturday, when I was walking around the streets of Franklin, Tennessee, I just didn't feel it. There was something missing. And you guys and girls know what was missing. I walked in and out of the shops. I had lunch. I was basically just going through the motions. We do a lot of that on our grief journey. We just kind of go through the motions. So I'm at this crosswalk area in the downtown area. And it's actually got, let me see if I can remember, 1, 2, 3, 4 streets intersecting. Sometimes I call it 5 points if there's 5 streets intersecting. This particular intersection, there were 4 streets intersecting. And I can remember watching the traffic flying by. I mean, it seemed fast when you're standing there on the curb. They probably weren't going more than 25, 30 miles an hour. As the cars would whiz by, and as I'm kind of feeling sad and down, I started having these crazy thoughts. And I know you've had them. Where I'm like, I wonder if I walked out in front of a car, if it would just end like that, and then I'd be in heaven. And I could get rid of all this grief and pain, and everything would be fine again. And then I thought, no, knowing my luck, car will hit me. I'll just be maimed and injured, and I'll be a burden to someone. And I'll linger on and on. And I thought, well, that's not a good plan. The point being, it didn't mean I was suicidal. It didn't mean I was going to kill myself. It just meant I'm human. And you're human too if you have those kind of thoughts. It can't be helped. Heck, I've seen stories about how dogs in a household where there were 2 dogs and one of the other dogs passed away, and then the other dog was just like laying around all the time, just lifeless. It's because they missed their friend. Now, the story I just shared with you, as I mentioned, I'd shared it one other time. It's been a couple of years ago since I shared that story. But I remember not long after I shared that story, I heard from a young woman from Chicago. She sent me an email. She said she had listened to that story while on a flight from Chicago to Los Angeles. She said, I'm only 37 years old. She says, I recently lost my husband. And she says, I'm left with 2 little kids. And she says, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know what my purpose is. And she says, I know I've got my kids. I've got to take care of them. I've got to raise them. She said, but I just miss my husband so, so much. And she said, I was thinking when I was on the airplane how I just wish God would let the plane crash. And she goes, then I would die with my children. Her children were with her on the plane. And she goes, then we'd go to heaven and we'd all be together again. And she said, a funny thing happened though. She says, I ran across your podcast while on the plane. And she goes, I listened to it and your story about that crosswalk in Franklin, Tennessee. And she said, I listened to that. And she says, then I thought, no, I don't want the plane to crash. She goes, that wouldn't be fair to all the other passengers on the plane. That wouldn't be fair to the flight crew, the pilot and the co-pilot, and all their families. She says, I'd be selfish wishing that on anyone. And she goes, it doesn't mean I didn't still have dark thoughts and wish we could go to heaven and be with my husband. But she says, I'm not going to do anything crazy. And she says, the rest of the flight, I just prayed that we'll have a safe journey. And I emailed her back and I said, I get it. I totally get it. You're not crazy. You're not suicidal. You're just human. And it's hard. It's so hard. I know it is. The big question everyone always asks me, does it get easier? And I say, I'm not sure it gets easier, but we learn to live with it better. That's what we do. Now, there are some on the sidelines who always say, you need to get a woman, or maybe they're telling you, you need to find another man, or you need to get a pet, or something like that. That may have worked for them, but that's not the end-all, cure-all for everyone. It's different for each and every person out there. There's not a one size that fits all when it comes to grief. And when it comes to continuing on in this life, it's hard. I know that. I'm there with you. And it seems to be harder, especially when we have those quiet times at home. I'm actually recording this late on a Friday night. Earlier today, though, I had a good day. I was actually pretty up most of the day. Felt like I smiled. I engaged and talked with several people. And then I come back home to the quietness. And then I had some of those dark thoughts. And I thought, I need to share those with you, because there may be somebody out there right now who's dealing with some really dark thoughts. And they're thinking they're crazy. And again, I'm no expert, but I don't think you're crazy. But if you reach that point where you think you're actually going to act on those thoughts impulsively, do reach out and get help. If anything in this message, I want to make that really clear. Reach out and get help. You need to do that. And you may be asking, well, what's the point anymore? I don't have a one-size-fits-all answer for you. The only thing I can tell you is that it seems like every day or maybe every other day, I end up running into somebody on the street or in a coffee shop, or maybe on an airplane flight, or maybe it's through this program. And I end up saying something that seems to touch them, and they say something that touches me. And then I go, okay, I've still got purpose. And do keep in mind, the life beyond this one is going to be glorious. At least that's what we're led to believe. If you're like me and a practicing Christian, that's what we think our future holds. And some might say, well, how can you believe that way? And I go, well, I'd rather believe that way than the other, to think that this is just it. I like thinking there's something far greater beyond this life. And there is. I know I probably had some other things that I wanted to share with you, and now the mind's just blank. But I hope, if anything, this message has touched your heart, it's touched your mind and your soul. And I want you to know that you too, no matter what your situation, no matter where you are, you still have purpose. I still have purpose. No matter how hard it is, we do have purpose. Thanks again for watching. I do hope, if you got something out of this, maybe share it with someone. Like and subscribe. Pass it along. That's the only way this program is ever going to grow. And I hate even pushing that here at the end after such a serious subject. I want to tell you too, another quick thing. I sat over there on my couch tonight and I had a full-length conversation with Pam. I could hear her answering and talking in my head. And I'm talking to her. Now I know in my brain, in my thinking logically, she didn't hear a word I said, and this was an imaginary conversation. But you know what? It didn't make me crazy. It made me feel better. So if you ever do that, that's okay too. And remember, if you are truly on the edge and you're having some of those thoughts, please reach out to someone. Okay? reach out to someone for some help. They're there. They want to help you. Maybe I've helped you. I don't know. Thanks again for watching. And you know what we always say. Yeah, let's make it a great day. Better yet, how about a better tomorrow? Bye now.